Welcome to Is This Real Deep Dive, where we dive into the corners of some of the most disturbing and secretive organizations in America. I'm your host, JC3, and today we're going to explore the shadowy world of the Word of Faith Fellowship Church in Spindale, North Carolina. For those who don't know, the Word of Faith Fellowship is no ordinary church. Since its founding in 1979 by Jane Whaley and her husband Sam, this institution has grown into a powerful yet secretive community with a reputation that sends chills down the spine of anyone who's heard the stories from its former members. But what is it about this church that changes people so completely? How does it transform once loving family members into distant, controlled individuals who barely resemble the people they were before? These are the questions that have haunted me, especially after a recent encounter during a TikTok live session. I was discussing my season of Cults, which is This Real Season 12, when a woman joined this chat. She began to share something deeply personal, something that would lead to an interview unlike any I've done before. She told me she was the niece of two current members of the Word of Faith Fellowship. As she spoke, it became clear that she had witnessed firsthand the unsettling transformation that occurs when someone falls under the church's influence. Her story was so compelling that I knew I had to hear more, so I invited her for a half-an-hour interview, and what she shared with me was both heartbreaking and chilling. She described her aunt and uncle as they were before joining the church: loving, kind, full of life. But over time, as they became more deeply involved with the Word of Faith Fellowship, something changed. They became distant, their personalities hollowed out, as if the very essence of who they were before had drained away. Their relationship with her, once close and warm, grew cold and format, dominated by the strict doctrines and isolating practices of the church. She spoke of the eerie tension that hung in the air when she spent 2 weeks with them, a visit that left her with unsettling memories and a deep sense of loss. There were little things, too, that she noticed. Creepy, almost surreal moments that hinted at the church's control over every aspect of their lives. The way they spoke in hushed tones, the rigid routines they followed, and the persuasive fear of anything or anyone outside the church's walls. Her story offers a rare glimpse into the lives of those still trapped inside this insidious organization, and the subtle yet disturbing ways it warps their relationships and identities. Here's that interview.
Hello.
Hey.
Yes, I'm interviewing her because apparently she has, I believe it's a aunt or an uncle. Aunt?
Both my aunt and my uncle.
Her aunt and her uncle are both a part of the Word of Faith Fellowship Church in North Carolina. Now, why is that important, you may ask? Apparently, there's a lot of allegations and a lot of rumors about this church being a quote-unquote cult. And Savannah here has on-site knowledge about stuff that has happened within the church, things that she has seen with her own eyes. So, this is why we're interviewing her. This is the first time I've ever hearing about this church. I've never actually heard about this church before. The more I read about it, the more it does sound very culty. This is what the information we're trying to get, and with this stuff is. So, just tell us a little bit about yourself, Savannah, and then we'll start getting ready to the questions.
Well, my name's Savannah. I am 25. I live in Georgia. I don't know what else to say.
This is your first interview?
My aunt's in a cult.
This is your first ever interview?
It is.
It is? Oh, okay. Well, if this is your first interview, well, I'm breaking that for you, so I'm happy to do that. So let's just put it like this. This will be the first question. I have 10 questions here. And answer it to the best of your knowledge, the best you can. So how do you first come to know the member of the Word of Faith Fellowship, and what was your initial impression of the church?
Well, my aunt's been in it since before I was born. Growing up, I didn't know it was a cult, and whenever I went, I didn't know. It was more whenever I was an adult, my mom sat me down and talked to me about it. My first experience is there. It was creepy. So, Jane, she was, whenever I first went, I was there for 2 weeks. My grandma took me on a trip to stay with my aunt, which is her daughter, for 2 weeks. It was creepy. My uncle sat me down and like told me all the rules and stuff that I had to abide by while I was in his house for that 2 weeks.
And you would be talking about that I'll put it up on the screen. There's a whole list of do's and don'ts that are from Jane and Sam, I believe that their names are, right? Which are the heads of this church.
Yes.
Okay. Continue.
So he gave me the list, went over it with me, and basically told me that there would be disciplinary actions if they were broken, and that he would be watching us 24/7, basically.
And you're not even a part of the church, right? You're not an official member?
Not a member.
So even if you're not a member, if you broke those rules, you would still have disciplinary actions held against you?
Yeah, being a visitor for those 2 weeks.
Wow. All right. The second question then is, can you describe any specific experiences or events you witnessed involving the Word of Faith Fellowship that stood out to you?
I witnessed them beating a kid. I'm not sure what he did, but I was in a room and with all the other kids, and they came in there and they basically did it in front of all the other kids.
So they beat a child. Like, how old do you think the child is? Like teenage? Younger than that?
Younger. He was probably like 9.
Oh my God. And they did this in front of other children?
All the children, yeah.
Wow. I mean, there has been a lot of abuse allegations that I'm reading here. That has been, these alleged things that have happened. A number of critics and former members have described the church as a cult and accused the church of abuse. These allegations are disputed by current members and church officials who claim that through strong prayer, church fellowship, biblical teaching, and encouraging community, lives ultimately changed. In 95, Jane and Sam Whaley, which are the two owners, denied allegations made by several former members in the TV program Inside Edition. One former student said he had been beaten multiple times by a church member to remove a destructive spirit. Other former members described sitting in a prayer chair as members walked around them shouting prayers. Have you experienced that?
No, but my cousin Mallory, she left the church. She told me a story about that. One time, this is what she says. I didn't witness it, but there's a guy in the church. So whenever you go to that church and you're single and you don't come in like as a family,
Mm-hmm.
They pick someone in the church that you're gonna marry.
So yeah, I've heard about that rumor. They sit there. Well, not heard. I've read about this rumor because literally last night I found this so astonishing when you were saying this in the comments of the live that we were in, and the more I'm reading about this, and the more it's in even the do's and the don'ts. Like I could put that on the screen when I'm editing this. That you'll see that Jane or Sam, they pick your husband.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
what happened to my aunt.
Your aunt there was a chosen person for her by Jane and Sam?
Yes, and my cousin as well.
Wow. Are they still married today?
Honestly, I don't talk to... I know my cousin left. Like, she's no longer in it, but I don't really talk to that side anymore.
Okay. Well, obviously, the third question is, what was your relationship with the member? And let's just pause that because it's your aunt and your uncle. Did they ever discuss their involvement with the church? Like, what were they involved in? What did they see and stuff like that?
Well, whenever you go to the church, you really have to be involved in I haven't heard any of their stories, but I heard some of my cousin's stories after she left. Like, I don't know if you read this story. I think it's online too. But she witnessed it. Apparently my uncle was there that night. So this guy comes to the church, they find him a wife, they get married, and it turns out that he's gay. And they brought him to the church late at night and made him sit in that chair, and then they just got a whole bunch of people and started praying like over him, and then they started beating him.
Jesus Christ. So I'm guessing the gay would be any specific quote unquote demons they deem would be in this person's body. Okay.
Yes.
Were there any practices or teachings of the church that you found particularly unusual or concerning?
I honestly don't remember what they taught. I was about 8 whenever I went.
I mean, did your aunt and uncle ever try to get you more involved into the church? Like, try to sign you up and try to, like, make you a member? Or any of your other family?
They tried to get my mom to join at one point, and she wasn't for it.
Yeah, it just seems that apparently a lot of people would just try to get involved in that if there was, trying to get other family members involved, if this is such a cult-like atmosphere, you know? How did the members' involvement with the church impact the relationship with their family and friends, including yourself? Did anything change between... I mean, obviously you said that, you don't keep in touch with your aunt and your uncle anymore. Is it specifically because they're involved in the church, or they don't reach out?
My grandma passed away. Before this, I rarely seen them besides like Christmas time. That's literally it. And then the one time I visited. But once my grandma passed away, I just quit talking to that side of the family.
Okay. Did you ever feel pressured to participate in the church activities or adopt their beliefs? If so, how did you respond?
I wasn't really pressured because I was younger, but she did pressure my mom a lot. And my granddad at one point, after my grandma passed away, my mom was telling me that she was trying to get him to move in with her, to like join it with them, and he didn't. He was thinking about it, but he didn't.
Oh, okay. I mean, like I said, it's just one of those things where you'd think like a cult-like atmosphere, there would be a lot more pressure and stuff like that. Like reading through the do's and the don'ts list, like I have to get it up here. Hold on. Like reading through this do's and don'ts list really like freaks me out. I mean, there's 145 don'ts.
Yeah.
And it tails from not playing Monopoly, not wearing shorts, all this extravagant like craziness of what you can't do. And we're sitting here and discussing about how it made you feel. Did you had to read through this particular list? This is the same list you went through?
Yes.
My God. And what if you didn't have because obviously you were visiting, what if you didn't have any of the clothes required to go to a ceremony? What did your aunt and your uncle do?
My grandma packed all that.
Oh, so your grandmother made sure.
Yeah, my grandma made sure.
So she knew all about all of this.
Yeah.
How was your grandmother's feelings on that, though? Because, like, it's coming from... I mean, you're a mother, right? You said you had to put your kids to bed before this. If coming from your perspective, if your children were involved in something like this with these do's or don'ts, how would you feel about that? Like, how did you think your grandmother felt about this?
I don't think she knew the extent to it. They kind of like, so like the beating the children and stuff, they kind of like try to keep quiet about that to outside people.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, like, once you join and then you're in it, they even make you sign a contract when you start going.
So this do's and don'ts list is a contract, or is it part of the contract?
Yes.
So this is the contract in which you get when you sign. And is this something that's handed to you before you sign the contract or after you sign the contract?
You get it with the contract.
With the contract, okay. Because that makes sense, because to me, if you spring this on me after I sign a contract, I mean, first, I don't think you should sign a contract for going to a church. That's just weird to me. But other than that, like I said, there's so many, 145 don'ts. And you're talking about, like I said, from things that range from not playing Monopoly, don't play football, don't wear shorts. You know, it's very extensive, and apparently it says it's continuing to grow as we speak. So I don't know how many more don'ts that they add. I don't know when this exact list was. Have you seen an updated list as of today, or you haven't seen anything like that?
No.
No? Okay.
But they did mention some of the rules, like one that I know of is every household has an elder. I think I told you about this.
Yeah.
Every household has an elder. So if your kids get in trouble, you can't discipline your own children. You have to call the elder, and the elder will come and like discipline your child.
And I'm guessing the elder or the older person is someone that is part of the ministry or the people who are in charge.
Yeah, it's basically people that been to the church for a while.
Who this Jane and Sam Whaley feel comfortable with.
Yes.
Okay. So what have you observed any long-term effects on your aunt and uncle? Like when you were younger to now, I know you haven't talked to them, but from when you stopped talking to them to like when you remember them as a kid, do you see a difference in them?
Yes. Whenever I was younger, when they came over, they didn't abide by any of those rules at first. Like when they were like coming to visit us, they weren't like, my aunt used to wear shorts when she would visit us at least. And then over the years, they started changing how they dressed. Like my uncle used to watch football, and they used to watch movies with us growing up. And then like over the years, like they completely changed, I guess, as they got more and more involved.
I mean, that makes sense. You start to feel comfortable in your surroundings, which you are in, and I'm guessing that's what happened to them. What are your thoughts on any of the controversies or legal issues surrounding the Word of Faith Fellowship? And did you ever hear of any of these controversies or their opinions from another member of the church?
Trying to think of one that I haven't brought up.
Well, I mean, you saw you said you saw a beating firsthand.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that some of these allegations that you read upon online, like
I believe all of them.
Yeah, I have a couple here. Oh, hold on, let me get back to it. Come on, there we go. The allegations as far as, I mean, we have the church was investigated by the SBI in 1990s for child abuse after more than 40 members gave testimony to the Forest City Daily Courier and other news outlets as to their experiences in the fellowship. No charges resulted. In 2000, a woman testifying in a child custody case said her 1-year-old was subjected to blastings or standing in a circle and loudly praying, sometimes for hours, in order to drive out demons. She also said her son was beaten enough to cause bruises. Jane Whaley was asked about discipline at her church, and she said God wanted children to be beaten if that was necessary. She cited Acts 2-2 to justify disciplinary actions. So, all those things with, obviously, if you've seen this firsthand, you're like, that's definitely
Yeah,
the case.
I believe it. Yeah, and I've seen it.
Has anybody in the church or former members that you've talked to turned around and confirmed any of these stories also?
The only former members I know is my cousin and her husband, and then her children, of course. I talked to her for a little bit once she left because she was staying with my granddad she stayed with him for like a year, and me and her talked about it a lot, and she confirmed all that's true. And then she also told me her stories that she went through because she was beaten, and she was locked in a shelter.
I heard. I read about one of these. They locked him in like this shelter. They locked a bunch of men in these shelters for days on end, chained to the wall. So all that is true, and all these experiences that obviously you've seen it firsthand, and you're getting firsthand accounts from someone who has left. Why do you think your aunt and your uncle still stay?
I think they believe that what they're doing is right.
And
They
it's just
kind of like
go on.
brainwash you
Yeah.
in a way.
I was just about to say it's more like brainwashing at this point now.
Yeah.
All right, so last question we got here, Savannah. Looking back, how has knowing someone from the Word of Faith Fellowship influenced your views on religious groups or communities?
It makes me cautious of like going to church and stuff like that. Like, I recently moved and I've been wanting to go to church, but like I don't want to go to a church that like a new church that I don't know, you know?
No, I definitely agree with you on that. I mean, I was just watching a documentary on Netflix about the Church of Latter-day Saints, and this one woman, they were talking about end of days, and she kind of went crazy and murdered her daughter and her son because she wanted to save them from the end of days. You know, to me, something like that just makes it more and more like culty, instead of like if you're driving your members to be crazy, to me that's more of a cult than it is a religion.
Yes, exactly.
So I definitely agree with you on that. I'm one of those people who I'm very cautious when it comes to churches. I'm very cautious when it comes to religious people in general. But not all of them. I mean, again, it's just like with every extremist, there's it's a little portion of the overall group.
Yeah.
And as far as this church, like I said, I don't know. I know there was a documentary on it on A&E in which they completely deny from a former member. There's a bunch of former members who have come out and tried to testify, tried to sue this church, and they seem to keep on winning their lawsuits, or lawsuits are dropped. I don't know why that is. Can you shed some light on that, if you know? I think. Oh, it's just the contracts?
Yeah, they basically sign up for all of this.
That makes sense. It's a legal thing then. Wow. That shed my light on that. That makes sense. It really does. And it's an amazing thing where they could sit there and get away with this because they have a legal binding contract with all these do's and don'ts. Now, I don't know about the beating, if that's quote unquote stated
in the contract.
It's in the contract itself.
Mhm.
Have you seen these contracts?
I haven't physically seen it, but my cousin told me about them because, okay, so if you go in as like, so the parents, whenever they sign, they're also signing for like basically saying that they could do whatever to their children as well. And then once the children turn 18, then they have to sign their contract.
I'm flabbergasted by this. Like, I'm trying to find the contract, see if anybody has turned around and posted it or anything like that. I have not found it. I mean, we got the list of rules, and that's really the only thing I've been finding. But I want to read what this contract says, because it's very interesting. If you're signing up and it has, beatings in there and stuff like that within the contract, what compels a person to sit there and sign a contract like that? I mean, let alone the do's and don'ts. Like, I need to know how you feel. And this is not, I'm talking just generally, I'm not talking about you specifically. How does somebody feel compelled enough to sit there and go, well, my faith is so strong in this religion that I'm going to basically sign my life away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's definitely it's a weird thing, and if all of it's in the contract, then they have a brilliant lawyer.
Yeah.
And there you have it, a first-hand account from someone who's witnessed the chilling transformation of loved ones under the influence of the Word of Faith Fellowship. Her story is a powerful reminder of the far-reaching impact of these kinds of organizations can have, not just on their members, but also their families. As we've heard, the changes that occur aren't just superficial. They dig deep into the psyche, altering personalities, breaking bonds, and creating an environment where fear and control reign supreme. It's a stark illustration of how easily devotion can be twisted into something dark and harmful. But what stands out for me most is the loss. The loss of connection, the loss of identity, the loss of the vibrant individuals her aunt and uncle were before. It's a tragic tale, one that reflects the experiences of many who have found themselves or their loved ones ensnared by such groups. This episode was just a glimpse into the world of the Word of Faith Fellowship, but there's so much more to uncover. The stories we've heard today serve as a chilling reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind closed doors, even in places that claim to be sanctuaries of faith. I want to thank Savannah for her bravery in sharing such a personal and painful story. It's never easy to speak out, especially when it involves those we love. But by doing so, she's helping to shed light on a shadowy corner of our world that too often goes unnoticed. Before we go, remember the new season of Is This Real? Season 13 drops September 1st. That is a Sunday, September 1st. We'll be diving deep into the history, the practices, and the mysteries surrounding the occult and spiritual communication. You won't want to miss it. As always, I urge you to keep asking questions, stay curious, and most importantly, stay vigilant. The truth is out there, but it's up to us to find it. If you found this episode compelling, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it with others who might benefit from hearing these stories. Your support helps us continue to bring these important and often hidden narratives to light. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and remember, question everything.